If you passed a gas station earlier today and saw the numbers climbing, maybe 10 cents, maybe 20, snap a photo right now, freeze that price in time, because 2 days from now, you'll look back and wish you could still pay it. You're witnessing something our generation has never seen before. Pull up the live camera feeds from the Detroit-Windsor area or check the satellite views across the Great Lakes. This doesn't resemble friendly negotiations between partners. It doesn't feel like a routine trade disagreement. It looks like a relationship ending badly, and it looks like one side is holding the other hostage. For the first time in recent memory, the President of the United States isn't the one in control of the situation. Donald Trump believed he could muscle his way to a stronger bargain. He figured he could physically shut down a $9 billion trade corridor, the Gordie Howe International Bridge, and bring Canada to heel. It was textbook strongman tactics, loud, confrontational, staged for maximum visibility. He wanted the image of American dominance, but he made a catastrophic error in judgment. He overlooked who actually supplies the fuel that fills Michigan's tanks. He forgot who powers the grid in New York. He ignored the fact that the jet fuel feeding O'Hare doesn't originate in Texas. It comes from Alberta. Mark Carney never raised his voice. He didn't appear on cable news threatening apocalyptic consequences. He didn't fire off middle-of-the-night social media attacks. He simply issued one discrete bureaucratic adjustment to a pipeline scheduling document, a minor administrative revision, and now the entire American Midwest faces an energy shortage that could triple pump prices before the weekend ends. We're going to walk through precisely what unfolded over the past 24 hours. We'll explain why the White House is currently gripped by behind-the-scenes chaos and why this particular Canadian response signals the close of the American era as you've known it. This goes far beyond gasoline. This is about who holds real power. And for the first time, that power has moved north. To grasp why your budget is about to feel serious pain, you need to understand the exact trigger. Rewind to yesterday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when Donald Trump put his signature on the executive order. The document leaked within minutes. It declared an immediate national security freeze on final operational approval for the Gordie Howe International Bridge. If you don't live near Detroit, you may not appreciate what that bridge really represents. It isn't merely a river crossing. It's the single most critical piece of infrastructure supporting the entire North American economy. The $9 billion project meant to relieve supply chain pressure. It's the backup plan the auto sector depends on. Trump's stated reason was political theater. He asserted Canada wasn't adequately inspecting shipments for illegal goods and Chinese origin parts slipping into the U.S. market. But let's be honest, this had nothing to do with cargo screening. It was pure leverage. He deployed federal agents to barricade the Detroit side ramps. He ordered concrete blocks placed across highway lanes. He wanted a dramatic visual. He wanted his supporters to see him commanding the border, controlling entry into the American fortress. The strategy was straightforward. Close the bridge, trigger panic across Ontario, cripple Canadian manufacturing for a week, and pressure Prime Minister Mark Carney to travel to Washington pleading for reopening. Trump envisioned a surrender photo. He wanted to appear triumphant. Instead, he received silence. For 6 hours, Ottawa stayed completely quiet. The Prime Minister's office went radio silent, no news conference, no fiery statement from the Foreign Minister, no counter tariffs announced. American cable channels seemed bewildered. They had anticipated shouting. They expected a brawl. Then, at 8 p.m., everything changed. Ground sensors along Line 5 and Line 78, the enormous pipelines that transport heavy Canadian crude beneath the Great Lakes to refineries in Toledo, Detroit, and Sarnia, began registering alerts. The flow didn't halt entirely. A complete shutdown would constitute an act of war and breach long-standing treaties. Carney is far too strategic for that. Instead, the volume dropped sharply. Canada declared an urgent integrity review of all cross-border energy assets. Ottawa's official release was perfectly crafted. It referenced serious worries about stability on the American side of the border and the necessity of safeguarding vital infrastructure amid potential civil disruption. See the genius? They turned Trump's own disorder into their justification. In effect, they said, because you're destabilizing the border, we must verify the safety of our pipelines. The outcome: the Canadian crude essential for American refineries to produce gasoline, jet fuel, and diesel is now effectively bottled up north of the border. Trump closed a bridge to trucks. Carney closed the fuel that allows those trucks to operate. You might wonder, can they legally do this? Let's check the data, because the statistics are brutal even when politicians aren't. We reviewed figures from the Energy Information Administration. The Midwest's reliance on Canadian crude is overwhelming. It isn't 10% or 20%. In states like Ohio and Michigan, almost 70% of the crude entering refineries arrives from Canada. Those facilities are engineered specifically for heavy Canadian oil. That's a physical fact. You can't quickly convert them to light sweet crude from Texas. You can't simply reroute a tanker from Saudi Arabia to inland Detroit. Pipelines are the only realistic path. When supply tightens, refineries must immediately cut throughput and ration stocks. Drone footage captured this morning at 6 a.m. over the Ambassador Bridge shows the reality. The queue of trucks stretches 14 miles. That isn't ordinary congestion. That is an economic cardiac arrest. Those trailers carry groceries, pharmaceuticals, and the just-in-time components Ford and GM require to assemble vehicles. Trump's closure of the new bridge terrified logistics operators. They're afraid of being stranded. Routes are being canceled. The price to move a container from Toronto to Chicago doubled in a single night. That is instant, unavoidable inflation being forced straight into the American economy by the president's signature. Wall Street responds faster than voters do. The instant the integrity review news broke, RBOB gasoline futures shot straight up. It wasn't a gentle increase, it was a vertical move. Traders understand exactly what's coming. They know Midwest inventories are already at seasonal lows. If the audit continues for 3 days, expect a 50-cent jump at the pump. If it drags on 2 weeks, shortages appear. You'll see out-of-gas notices across Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. You'll see rationing. And here's the clincher. A leaked Department of Energy memo to the White House, time-stamped late last night, carries the subject line: critical vulnerability, Midwest fuel supply. The document directly cautions the president, stating in part, Canada possesses the leverage to induce a regional energy shock within 48 hours. We do not have the strategic reserves in place to counter a supply throttle of this magnitude. They knew. Trump's own analysts warned him Canada held a kill switch. He proceeded anyway. He assumed Canada was a subordinate partner. He believed he could tighten the vice and Canada would simply apologize. But you're now seeing a different Canada, one that recognizes it controls the lifeblood of the American economy and has chosen to apply pressure. That brings us to the central figure who isn't flinching, Mark Carney. You must appreciate the stark contrast in mindset. Trump operates from a dominance framework. He assumes that because the U.S. economy dwarfs Canada's by a factor of 10, he automatically holds every advantage. In isolation, he's correct. But the real world is deeply interconnected. Trump just cut the very strand that supports him. And that the pain is wildly uneven. Yes, Canada suffers when trade freezes, but it suffers broadly. The United States suffers acutely in politically decisive places. Look at the map. The refineries now running dry sit in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those aren't arbitrary states. They're the ones that determine national elections. They're the ones Trump relies on to maintain his coalition. By confronting Canada, he didn't merely target a foreign country. He targeted the daily lives of his own voters. He's also losing the story. Normally, Trump flourishes amid disorder. He creates a crisis, points the finger elsewhere, then celebrates when he partially resolves the mess he made. This time, the chain of cause and effect is too obvious. He issued the order to block the bridge. Gas prices soared. He can attempt to blame Carney, globalists, or unfairness, but when a Detroit trucker can't fuel his rig or a Toledo nurse pays $9 per gallon, they don't care about tweets. They care that the tank is dry. Notice the quiet from Republican governors in the region. They aren't rallying behind the president. They're alarmed. Ohio's governor was on the phone with Ottawa this morning, not the White House, Ottawa. That represents a breakdown of central authority. When American governors bypass their own president to deal directly with a foreign leader they perceive as the steady hand, federal credibility collapses. Mark Carney understands this perfectly. If this were Justin Trudeau, we might hear emotional appeals about shared history and friendship. Carney doesn't play that game. He's a central banker. He reasons in terms of risk, liquidity, assets, and leverage. He treats political capital the same way he treats financial capital. Ordering the pipeline integrity review is brilliant because it's legally bulletproof. He didn't declare an embargo. That would violate USMCA and invite legal retaliation. He said, "We have safety concerns." How does Trump counter safety? How does he fight integrity inspections? He can't. Carney weaponized paperwork. He disguised a stranglehold in administrative procedure. This is a completely different style of conflict. Trump wages culture war battles. Carney wages economic war battles. Trump aims to dominate headlines. Carney aims to reprice the entire relationship by touching energy. He's speaking directly to America's true power centers, not the MAGA crowd, but Exxon, GM, and Chicago commodity desks. He's compelling American corporations to flood the White House with demands to resolve it. Carney knows Trump can dismiss diplomats, but he cannot dismiss a 20% market plunge. And if the Midwest loses fuel, the market will crater. That is crisis management done with precision. Cold, deliberate, extremely potent, and ruthlessly effective. Carney isn't seeking Trump's approval. He's proving Canada isn't an optional ally. Canada is an essential one. Disrespect the necessity and the supply disappears. Step back for a moment. Even if the bridge reopens tomorrow, even if oil resumes flowing, something irreversible has fractured. You're watching the end of the old special relationship. For 70 years, the United States and Canada functioned essentially as one economy bisected by a border. Energy security from the north was taken for granted. It was automatic. Trump shattered the automatic. Carney is revealing the new truth. Canada is a sovereign power prepared to use its resources strategically. What does that mean for you? The age of inexpensive, dependable, background-level trade is finished. Should Canada genuinely reorient away from the United States, the price of nearly everything rises. Not only fuel, but lumber for construction, aluminum for vehicles, fertilizer for crops, potash, uranium, even fresh water. Canada supplies a huge share of the raw inputs that sustain the American way of life. If they conclude the U.S. is an unreliable partner, they will redirect those resources to Europe, Japan, China. They will construct bypass infrastructure, and you will pay the instability premium every time you fill your tank or buy groceries. This isn't merely a commercial disagreement. It's the opening phase of a separation. And in this separation, Canada holds the stronger financial position. The belief that Canada would forever remain quiet and accommodating was the most serious misjudgment of the Trump presidency. You're now seeing that misjudgment corrected in real time, 1 cent at a time, on the price board at your local station. So where does this lead? We're in perilous territory. 3 paths seem possible. Scenario A, the quiet retreat. Trump recognizes he stepped into a trap. He never admits error, so he proclaims victory over something trivial, perhaps new screening protocols or improved bridge lighting. He silently reopens access. Carney completes the review. Oil resumes, prices settle, but trust is permanently damaged. This is the likeliest outcome, yet it leaves Trump appearing weaker than ever. Scenario B, escalation. Trump digs in deeper. Rising pump prices wound his pride too severely. He moves to seize Canadian assets or impose 100% tariffs across the board. If he does, Carney won't merely reduce flow, he'll halt it, invoking force majeure. Canada's currency may weaken, but the U.S. economy enters immediate recession. That is the mutually destructive path. Scenario C, corporate intervention. Terrified U.S. executives pressure Republican senators to act. They threaten to pull funding. They criticize Trump openly. That would shatter his grip on his own party. Here's what makes this frightening. Most leaders seek de-escalation routes. Trump avoids off-ramps. And Carney has decided he's finished playing the polite neighbor. We're watching a game of chicken, one driver barreling forward in a semi, the other calmly operating the traffic signals. Right now, every light is turning red. This is the emerging reality, sharper, costlier, far more brittle. Trump closed a bridge to Project Strength. Instead, he revealed vulnerability. He demonstrated that without Canada, the American machine begins to stall. Carney didn't initiate the conflict, but he is concluding it, striking the single point Trump values most: the economy. The question you must answer for yourself is simple. Is Mark Carney bluffing, or are we about to discover what North America looks like when the fuel actually stops? I want to hear your take. Is this a justified stand by Canada, or is Carney risking too much? Leave your thoughts below and subscribe. Events are moving faster than mainstream coverage can handle, and you need to stay ahead of what happens when the pumps finally go dry. See you next time.